God, this morning I just ask that you open our hearts, you open our minds, our eyes and our ears to what you would have us hear this morning. God, speak through me, use me, and may we glorify you in this time. Amen. Good morning. How are you guys? So if this is your first time here, this is not normal programming. I'm not usually the one who has the privilege to be up here, but I was given the privilege this week. So here we are. So welcome this morning. My name's Nick Williams. I am the student pastor here. I work with our wonderful teenagers, but this isn't normal, so apologies ahead of time or whatever that might be. But anyways, we're working our way through a series right now called How to Live Through a Bad Day. We kicked this series off a couple weeks ago, and this series is carrying us through the season of Lent and leading us right up to Easter Sunday, where we get to celebrate what this is all about, why this building is here. But how to live through a bad day. As Jesus was hanging on the cross, earning our way, providing us with salvation, he also was still teaching. He was still doing what he'd been doing for the past years. And there's lessons we can learn through what he said while he was on the cross, while he was going through his own worst day. And so we've been walking through this for a couple weeks now. The first week, we're going through this chronologically, our best guess of what Jesus said in order of while he was on the cross. And the first thing he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they're doing. And so 2 weeks ago, we started the series off and we looked at the first step to forgive others. The first step to forgive others. And we learned one truth from that. Power is released when forgiveness is given. Power is released when forgiveness is given. And then last week we journeyed on to the next step of Jesus' conversation with those who were being crucified with him. And it's, if you realize what was actually happening on the cross and what had happened leading up to that, and then as he was hanging there, these conversations, it's crazy. It really is. It's crazy to see what he was actually saying and that he was able to have those conversations. But last week we looked at the helpful step, and we learned that when we help others who are facing what we face, we get what we're facing out of our face. And so we have the ability to help others who are going through what we're going through because we are having the same experience. Now today we're going to look at the responsible step, but I've already skipped a slide, and so I want to make sure I highlight this. The kind of the theme verse that we're using to go through this series is out of Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2, and it says this: "Keep your eyes on Jesus, who both began and finished this race we're in. Study how he did it. Because he never lost sight of where he was headed, that exhilarating finish in and with God. He could put up with anything along the way, the cross, shame, whatever. And now he's there in the place of honor right alongside God." And so we're using that as that's kind of been our goal, our theme as we've been working our way through this series and looking and examining at what Jesus said on the cross and how that applies to us as we go through our own bad days. This morning, we are looking at this next conversation that Jesus has. And I'm going to call this the responsible step. And the passage today, I'm going to say tonight again, is John chapter 19. We're going to be in John chapter 19. If you want to go ahead and turn there, open up your device to there. Pastor already gave you permission to have your phone out. But chapter 19, 25 through 27, out of the New Living Translation, it says this: "Standing near the cross were Jesus' mother and his mother's sister Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother standing there beside the disciple he loved, he said to her, 'Dear woman, here is your son.' And he said to this disciple, 'Here is your mother.' And from then on, this disciple took her into his home." Now, I've been in ministry for 8 or 9 years, paid ministry for a little over 8 now. And I really didn't have, this might surprise you guys, I wasn't given the opportunity to preach, to speak from a stage on a Sunday morning until it was several years into my ministry. And that was down in Owasso. I was on staff at Silver Creek Church of the Nazarene. But it was several years, and that was not because of my boss, Pastor Nate. He wouldn't give me the chance. It wasn't that. But I was terrified. Like, it's intimidating being on this stage. Like, it really is. And the reality is, now that I've been in ministry for years, like, I speak to the teenagers every single week. Downstairs Wednesday nights, I prepare a message every single week. Like, I create the series, I write the message, I give the series, we do small groups. I've done the preparation stuff, I understand that, but the reality is, like, you guys are not teenagers. You're very different than teenagers. Speaking to teenagers in my mind is very easy. I don't stress about that at all. But preaching's different. Like, there's a distinct difference to it. And when I was younger, I'm 29 now. And when I was younger, I did not feel, and this was not wrong, but not right. But I didn't feel like I had the life experience to be able to speak to adults. I don't know that I have that now. But then, 21, 22, 23 years old, what can I say to you guys that you need to hear? What can I say to parents, to grandparents, to families that you need to hear? There are plenty of people more qualified to me. And so I held off. Like, I held off, and he'd give me the opportunity, and I didn't want it. And it's still, this morning, this is a hard one for me. Because I feel like I don't have the life experience to be able to communicate this stuff. But as I've been sitting on this, I had several weeks to prepare, and as I was sitting on it, I realized 2 things. The whole series, How to Live Through a Bad Day. Being 29, I sat there and I was like, realistically, most of us in this room, almost all of us really, we've lived good lives. We don't have bad days like Jesus went through. Like, a bad day is like not getting mustard on your burger at McDonald's. Or getting mustard on your burger at McDonald's is a bad day. Like, we tend to stress over things that really don't matter. And so as I sat there, I realized, like, I don't have these life experiences, but I have had days that were not good. And so there's a side of that, like, I don't feel like I have the experience, that I'm coming from a place, that I'm speaking from a place where I can confidently say these truths. But then I realized there's another side to all of this. There's another side to why we are here, to why this book is important. And if you guys aren't familiar with the Church of the Nazarene, we believe that the Bible is completely alive, and it is completely relevant to where you are every step of your life. And there's another side of that too, that the truths in this book, and especially what Jesus said, always matter, and they always carry weight, and they always carry power. So please understand this morning, as I say what I say, it's not coming from life experience, it's coming from what I've seen. And we'll explore that here a little bit more with us in this room, but this is not from me. Okay, I've had my share of bad days, but I really haven't had a bad life at all. So this morning, our passage again, I want to read it with you guys again, just so we're all clued into what's happening here. John chapter 19, 25 through 27. Standing near the cross were Jesus' mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother standing there beside the disciple he loved, he said to her, "Dear woman, here is your son." And he said to this disciple, "Here is your mother." And from then on, this disciple took her into his home. Now, When I am doing my own personal devotions and I'm working through my own time and I'm working with students and all the different facets of ministry for me in my life and here, every time I'm working through a passage or communicating anything, I always ask why and how. And those are the two questions I want to answer this morning with us. Why and how? Why does this matter to us? And how do we move forward out of this space and let it affect and empower our lives? Why and how? Why and how? And so the whys first, I want to highlight two things from the why. The first one is this: we have a responsibility to those closest to us. Now, when I say closest to us, that is not like physical distance around you. That is not the people sitting around you in this space, because it really gets awkward when you go to lunch and there's people around you don't know. But this is speaking about those people that you consider your tight-knit group. For a lot of us, that's family. That is our parents, our siblings, our children, our aunts, our uncles. That's family. And then when you go off and you get married, it also includes brother-in-laws and sister-in-laws, and it gets big. But it's those closest to us. And for some of us in here, it's past that. It's also friends, and it's coworkers, and it's people that you've done life with for years, and it's people in this room that you've grown close to because of this building and this church. Like the people closest to us. We have a responsibility to those closest to us. The second thing of why this matters, number 2, is this. Oh, there we are. Our reaction in those moments carry immense weight. Our reactions in those moments carry immense weight. Now, and this is kind of like, this is the theme almost for this whole series, like it could be, because Jesus he's hanging on a cross, guys. Like this is brutal. This is the worst way you could die, and he's gone through the worst things leading up to this. But he's still teaching. He's still teaching. And in Mark we see this, and this is in your bulletin, but in Mark we see this, chapter 15, verse 30. When the centurion who stood there in front of Jesus saw how he died, he said, "Surely this man was the Son of God." This man stood there at the foot of the cross the whole time. And then after everything was said and done, he realized, wow, that's crazy. How he carried himself on the cross. Like he came to believe because of Jesus while he was dying. That's crazy. And so how we are through our worst days, through our bad days, carries immense weight, especially to those closest to us. Because the reality is, when we're having a bad day, we're on display. People get to see how we react. People get to see what we're going to say. People get to see our attitude. And sometimes that's the hardest time to make sure we're glorifying God. But how we react in those moments carries immense weight. Now, those are the two whys. Why does this passage matter? Now the how. How does what Jesus said to Mary, his mother, and to John matter to us? How do we move out of this space and let that affect our lives? I have 3 points, and then I have one thing I want to end with, and we'll be done in here together. But 3 things coming out of this passage. The first one is this: how do we make sure we do those whys? How do we make sure we do those whys? The first thing is this: fill your life with those who will still be there. Fill your life with those who will still be there. In our passage in verse 26, it says this: when Jesus saw his mother standing there beside the disciple he loved, he said to her, "Dear woman, here is your son." Now, what's interesting about this little bitty passage here, it carries all kinds of interesting details. Because Jesus is hanging on the cross. We understand that. Prior to this, okay, Jesus was praying in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? And then they come and they arrest him, and Peter gets ticked and cuts somebody's ear off, and they're like, Judas kisses him, and then they take him into custody, and his disciples scatter. Like they're totally, like it's like, Jesus is awesome. He rode into town on a donkey. Everybody was people were pumped. They were like laying down their clothes, and it was weird, but it was awesome. People were excited. And then we had the Last Supper, and he started talking about death again, and then he went off to pray, and now all of a sudden he's in jail. And then his disciples, they disappear. Like, these are the people he's walked with day in, day out for years. And when the going got tough, they checked out. When the going got worse than it had been yet, they were done. And through the whole process of his trial, and then getting beat, and then getting flogged, and then carrying his cross, and then getting hung on like, they were gone. They weren't a part of any of it. Peter showed up for one piece and ruined it. He ruined that. But they were gone. And then we have this little interaction, and we see John is actually there at the cross. And what's even more interesting, and so this is out of the Gospel of John, and so the Gospel of John, we assume that John wrote the Gospel of John, right? Okay, that's an easy assumption that we would assume that. So John is talking about himself, and John, writing about himself, says when Jesus saw his mother standing there beside the disciple he loved, no other disciple says that about himself. Now, I totally imagine John's he's recording all this, and he's like, this is going to be good. None of the other guys are going to put this. This is going to be good. Like John the Beloved and the disciple he loved. He's the only one that refers to himself in that manner. Nobody else refers to John in that manner. In fact, no other disciple records this interaction. But it also stands to reason that John was there. He may have taken a liberty there and said, yeah, I'm the one that Jesus loved most. But when the going got as bad as possible, John was still there. He was still there. And that's hard. To be in that space and to watch somebody you've spent so much time and energy with, and somebody you loved and committed your life to, and watching them die in the worst possible way. Fill your life with those who will still choose to be there through all of it. And this is a lesson we don't have bad days. We don't have days like that. We have bad days, and our own bad days they're bad to us. And then some of us have worse days than others, but nobody is going to go through that. But it still helps when we can find people who are still going to be there, who are still going to be there, who are still going to be there. And sometimes for us, we have a bad day and it's a bad day, and then we have another bad day and it was actually way worse than the other bad day. And sometimes we have friends and we have those people around us, we have family members who are there through some of those, they're kind of bad days, but when the day gets really bad, they check out. And then you have other friends when the day really, really, really gets bad, they check out. But this whole interaction with Jesus and his mother would never have happened had John not been there. Fill your life with those who will still be there. How do we take care of our families when we experience those bad days? Make sure you have people in your life who are still going to be there. Take care of those people by making sure we have people who are still there. Now, number 2, the second thing that I've learned from reading this, point yours towards the one who is dependable. Point yours towards the one who is dependable. Now, leading up to all of this, earlier in the book of John, chapter 17, verse 1, we see this. After saying all these things, Jesus looked up to heaven and said, Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son so he can give glory back to you. And if we go look at who was there again, in John chapter 19, Mary, Mary's sister, Mary Magdalene, and John, those people were committed to Jesus. They were committed to him. They were there for him, not for any other reason but him. Jesus had raised them up, and it sounds like we're raising children, but he trained them to focus on the one who was important. Now it's about him, but they were there because they believed he was the Son of God. They believed he was who he said he was. So how do we take care of those closest to us? How do we make sure they're okay amidst our bad days? Point yours towards the one who is dependable. And this is not in the bad day. This is leading up to the bad day. This is ahead of time. How do we prepare our children? How do we prepare our teenagers? How do we prepare our families for the eventuality that is a bad day? Because they are coming. We make sure they have a rock-solid foundation on the one who is dependable. Like Jesus talks about it elsewhere, about foundations and rocky soil or rocks and sand, and what lasts and what doesn't. Point yours towards the one who is dependable. The last point, and this is the one I think that is common sense. I think it's one of those things that we know, but we forget. Number 3 is this: don't transmit your trauma. Don't transmit your trauma. And in our passage again, 25 through 27, standing near the cross were Jesus' mother, his mother's sister, Mary Magdalene. Jesus saw his mother standing there with the disciple he loved, said to her, "Dear woman, here's your son," said to this disciple, "Here's your mother." From then on, John took Mary into his home. That's the only interaction Jesus has with them while he's hanging on the cross. And this is a point of not what was said, but what was not said. It could have been very easy for Jesus to lash out, to say what he should not say. Now again, it's one of those times, like when I'm teaching teenagers, I'm like, well, yeah, it's Jesus. Like, he's perfect. Of course he's going to make the right decision. But it still, I think, needs to be said. When we're having a bad day, we can't lash out at other people. We can't. That's not good. That doesn't glorify God. That doesn't point everybody in the midst of our bad day towards God. Don't transmit your trauma. And I think we do this. We do this so easily. We do this so quickly. Like, it's not like it's intentional. But we do it. We have a bad day, and everybody knows when you're having a bad day, right? Especially those married in here. You're like, yeah, not talking to her today. Okay, amen. Like, I mean, you guys get to work, and you're like, man, don't talk to the boss today. I'm having a bad day. Okay, like Devil Wears Prada. Okay. Some of you got it, yeah. Okay, but don't transmit your trauma. We do it without realizing it. It's so easy because we're having a bad day. Like, that totally ruins our emotions. It ruins our outlook. Like, man, everything goes wrong then. Every little thing is completely way bigger than it should have been. Don't transmit your trauma. This is a stupid example. I get that. For those of you who do not know, I'm a dog person. We have 2 dogs at home, 2 Australian Shepherds. One is Abby and I got like 7 months after we got married, so he's been here the whole time. The other one we got, we'll have had her 2 years this just September, just August or something. So our oldest, he's a boy. His name's Zeke. Zeke is as brilliant as they come. Like, really, he is such a smart dog. Like, I can tell him to do one thing, and he'll sit there and look me in the eyes like, I don't get it. Say it again. So we'll go back and forth. Like, you're not making sense. Okay, like he is so smart. He's a fantastic dog, love him. Our other dog, she is as dumb as a box of rocks. Okay, the other day I heard her barking outside, went out to the backyard, like I'm sneaking out there. I was gonna chew her out, sneaking out there. She wasn't in the backyard. She got out of the backyard. And so she's barking outside the fence into the next yard. So I start sneaking over there, and she just happened to come back up, and she caught my eye through the slats in the fence. So it was like, then she couldn't figure out how to get back in. So then she tried to jump over. She's not an athlete. Couldn't jump over the fence. Okay, she's so dumb, but she's also the happiest dog in the world. Like, loves it when we get home. But you know what's really easy with dogs? It's really, really, really easy for me to get home to see my dogs who've been in a kennel all day. Like, they've been by themselves in the kennel, and for me to immediately treat them badly. Because I've had a bad day. They don't even know anything. They don't know that. They don't know anything. But it's really easy for me to treat them poorly. Like, that's a stupid example, but don't transmit your trauma. Don't make somebody else's day worse because you're having a bad day. And we tend to do that with those who are closest to us. We tend to do that with family. And that's never, never, never good. It doesn't help anything. It definitely doesn't glorify God. And that's our goal. That's why we're here. That's why we have these conversations. And when we're having a bad day, we still have a responsibility to those who are closest to us. Now, my last thought, and then we're going to close together. My last thought, and then we're going to close together. Don't lose focus. Don't lose focus on both God and those closest to you. As we learned last week, when we get to help other people who are facing what we're facing, it gets what we're facing out of our face. When we can take the attention off of the bad day, when we can focus on God, who is dependable, who is there, who worries about our bad days. Like, he's totally worried about our bad days. When we can focus on him and focus on those who are closest to us, it minimizes the bad day, but it also helps us to make sure we take care of, that we're responsible for those who are closest to us. Don't lose focus. I hope that is encouraging this morning, that is something that you guys can realize as you go, because bad days come and go. And then we have days that aren't so bad, but they're still bad enough that we treat others poorly because of it. Don't lose focus. Now I'm going to invite you.